By the spring of 1789, France had become a powder keg, and all it needed was a spark. King Louis XVI, desperate to replenish the royal treasury, planned to impose new taxes. But under the old regime, the king couldn't do this alone. He had to call the Estates General, a political body that hadn't met in over 175 years. On 5th May 1789, in the Grand Hall of Versailles, representatives from all three estates assembled. But from the start, the Third Estate, representing the common people, felt marginalized. They were made to stand at the back, while the privileged sat in front. For centuries, voting in the Estates General followed a simple rule: one estate, one vote. That meant the first and second estates, though smaller in number, could easily outvote the third. But in 1789, the Third Estate demanded change: one person, one vote. This idea, echoing Rousseau's principles of popular sovereignty, was rejected by the king. Infuriated, members of the Third Estate walked out. On 20th June, they gathered in an indoor tennis court and took a bold oath they would not disperse until they drafted a new constitution for France. Thus, the National Assembly was born. Their leaders? Visionaries like Mirabeau, a nobleman who believed in liberty, and Bastille, a priest who asked a simple but powerful question: what is the Third Estate? Everything. While politicians debated, the streets of Paris exploded with rage. The price of bread soared. The threat of military crackdown loomed. Fear gripped the city. And then, on the morning of 14th July 1789, a crowd stormed the Bastille, a royal fortress and prison that had become a symbol of tyranny. Though it held only 7 prisoners, its fall was seismic. The commander was killed. The fortress was torn down, brick by brick, by the hands of ordinary citizens. Across France, panic spread. In rural areas, rumors swirled that landlords had hired armed gangs to destroy crops. In response, peasants attacked manors, looted grain stores, and burned documents listing feudal dues. The king, watching this unfold, could no longer ignore the National Assembly. Under immense pressure, he reluctantly accepted its legitimacy. On the night of 4th August 1789, the National Assembly made a historic decision. It abolished feudal privileges. Nobles were forced to give up their exemptions. The church lost its right to collect tithes. Land owned by the church was seized, giving the state assets worth 2 billion livres. This wasn't just economic reform, it was symbolic. For the first time, birth no longer guaranteed power in France. Rights, property, and status would now be tied to citizenship, not ancestry. But the revolution was far from over. It was only entering a new stage. By 1791, the National Assembly completed France's first constitution. Its goal? To limit the powers of the monarchy and ensure that no one, not even a king, stood above the law. Power was now divided into 3 branches: legislative, to make laws; executive, to enforce them; judiciary, to interpret them. The Constitution introduced indirect voting. Only men above 25 years of age, who paid taxes equivalent to 3 days of a laborer's wage, could vote. They were called active citizens. Women, the poor, and those under 25 were excluded, categorized as passive citizens. This new system declared that sovereignty belonged to the nation, not to the king. It also included the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, guaranteeing rights such as liberty, property, freedom of speech, and equality before law. France was now a constitutional monarchy. The king remained, but his powers were no longer absolute. His actions would be subject to law, and law would be shaped by the will of the people. But was this enough to satisfy a nation in turmoil? Or was this just the calm before the next storm? In the next segment, we'll witness how the revolution radicalized and how monarchy, even limited, soon became intolerable. Stay tuned.